I've gotten this question a lot. Why do I annotate? How do I annotate? Where did I start? What are my tips and tricks? So today I'm going to be doing a book annotation video. Hello lovely book dragons, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Joana and I love to talk about books on this channel, specifically fantasy books. And today I'm talking to you about my annotating process. This is a question that I get often, and I was tagged by the lovely Vish over at Books with V. Thank you so much, Vish, for tagging me in the book annotation tag. I will leave her video in the description of this video as well as her channel, and the original came from Jessie over at Bowties Books, and I will leave their video and their channel also in the description of this video so you can check them out. And I decided I was going to do what Vish did, where I'm first going to talk a little bit about my annotation process, about why and how and where and not, and then we'll go through the questions to see if there's any questions I didn't answer yet that I need to answer. So first things first is, why do I annotate and how did it start? I think this started way back in high school when we were reading books for school. I was writing in them because we had a lot of exams on these books, and I had notes on the side, but there were specific lines in the text that when the teacher's like, this line is super important because of blah blah blah, whatever it was, and I would like highlight that line, I would write in my book, and then I would have it there as well as the notes on the side of the book as well. And I loved doing that in school, and it didn't feel like a bad thing. I didn't feel like, oh, I'm writing in my books, because these were for school, right? Like, these were school books, I didn't care, but I never did this to my own personal library. Like, my books, I've always wanted to keep them pristine and clean, but I've always loved going back to those books that I annotated in school and flip through my annotations and to the highlights and the circlings and the writing. I always loved that. And then I started thinking, well, if you love it, why don't you just do it to your own personal collection? I mean, who's to stop you from doing this if you love doing it so much with the books that you read for school, and if you're getting so much more out of the book because you are annotating it? And so I decided eventually that I was gonna do this, but I didn't go ham on my first books, trust me. But before I tell you how I started with my own private collection, I want to go as to why I annotate. And what I just said is absolutely true. The reason I annotate, the main reason I annotate, is because it lets me engage with the text in a way that simply reading doesn't do. And even more, because I love to immersion read so much, which I will leave my video on immersion reading up here, which is when you listen to the audiobook as well as you read along. Immersion reading allows me to be immersed, but it doesn't allow me to engage with the text because the audiobook keeps on going all the time. So I don't pause, I don't highlight, I don't ponder really when I'm immersion reading as much as I do when I annotate, because the audiobook just keeps on going and then I don't pause it and stuff like that. So when I want to get when I really want to engage with the text, when I want to feel like something specific, when I want to get something out of it, I often just annotate. And annotating can take multiple forms. I can annotate when I'm immersion reading if I just tap, if I don't write in it, if I don't highlight or anything like that. If I'm just like reading and sticking a tab in it, I can do that when I'm immersion reading. But when I really, the nitty gritty annotating with the highlights and the text and everything, which I will show you different options of how I've done things, that's when I want to engage with the text. I want to, for example, if I know the world is going to be super rich, I want to savor the crap out of that world, and I'm going to annotate it. Or if I know I'm going to love the characters so much or the story so much, if there's things that I know I can potentially feel a lot from, I want to take my time with the book and annotate it. The other reason I love to annotate is because I like to flip back through my annotations and then see, for example, if it's a book in a series and then the next one is coming out, I can just go back through my annotations and see what I highlighted, what worked, what didn't, what I wanted to remember to go into the next book. Now this works well if you have maybe written in your books, but I find that it is hard when I'm only sticking tabs in, which is what I've done for a lot of books, because then I don't really know what the tab's always referencing exactly on the page. I just have to spend a little bit more time looking at the page and trying to find what I'm looking for. Whereas when I write in it or highlight it, it's like your eyes fall to that page immediately and you know, oh, this is the part that I highlighted. So that is also a reason to kind of a refresher for either live shows, for reviews, for discussions, or for next book in series. That's another reason why I annotate. And pretty much those are the two main reasons why I do it. To remember things, to be able to flick back to something for a discussion, for a review, for a live show or anything like that. And because I want to engage with the text, I want to really make this book mine. I want to live it. I don't just want to read this book, I want to freaking live it. And that is why I annotate. There's different ways for me to annotate. Sometimes I just read a book And I have a book where I don't have any tabs. I just have everything highlighted inside or written in the book. That is very rare for me to do that. When I was reading that book, I just didn't feel like wasting time getting tabs. That's what it was. The book was very fast paced. It was House of Dragon, which the second book never came out, but I really liked that first book, and as I was reading, I was just like highlighting and writing in it, but I didn't want to waste time taking out tabs for some reason. That is very rare for me to have that kind of annotation. What is much more common is that I have either the opposite, where I just stick tabs in and I don't have anything highlighted in my text, which I will show you an example for very soon here, or I have where it's all hand like highlighted, written, and then I don't tap every page or everything that I highlighted on the page because that will be way too much. I also have an example of that right here. So those are the 3 ways that I have annotated. I will talk about tips and tricks on how to get started on annotating in a bit here, other options that could work for you, but this is what has worked for me. So let me show you what I used to annotate and then some examples of my annotations. So my annotating thing is just this little pouch right here. I have a few different things in here. It switches. Sometimes I use different pens, sometimes I use different highlighters, but basically everything I need is in here. First thing I have, of course, are the tabs. I use these kinds of tabs. It's like a pack where you can get them like this, where they're a little bit squared, but also with a triangle, with a pointy thing. And I like these ones better because the pointy shows you exactly where you're on the page. These ones are also fine because they're not very wide. I have, in one book that I'll show you, I have tabs that were really wide, so it's really hard to pinpoint what you were exactly referring to. But yeah, my favorite ones are the ones with the little arrows. And they're going everywhere because sometimes I run out of colors, and I have colors that I have multiple little tabs of because I use them less. And what I end up doing with these kinds of tabs where clearly I don't use yellow as much as I use other colors in my annotating, which I will tell you why in a bit, what each color means. But what I then end up doing is that for some books then I end up switching the annotation system so I don't use the same colors over and over again. Or for certain books, I know, for example, I read that one and I only annotated quotes that I really liked or things that make me think. And then I use one color and I just stick that one color anywhere I'm going to annotate something. It's just because then I'm not like looking for world, looking for politics, looking for anything like that. So if I'm going to read a nonfiction, I'm probably just going to use these yellow tabs and finish them off just because I have so many spare ones of these. So this is the first thing in my little pouch. It's the tabs I use. And I don't know if I said, but I buy these on Amazon as like a bulk pack of like thousands of these tabs. And I have them and they last me a while. Next up, I have mild liners, which are in the colors of the tabs. There's 2 purples, so I use one purple mild liner for the purple, and then I just stick in the right color purple tab. But this is the only one that has to do a double job. But other than that, we have all the other colors. We have green and pink and blue and green and orange and yellow, which are the exact same tabs, and like I said, the purple. But I also have a gray one, which is just like for stuff that doesn't fit this, but I kind of wanted to highlight it anyway. So then I just use a gray mild liner to highlight it, and it works really well. Also, I have a combination of pens. I have these Stabilo that are like with a wider tip. Kind of I used before using the mild liners, and I still use them. The mild liners I used to really highlight, and these ones is to underline. And then I have the small version to write next to these or to underline also when it's less important. And it's like the mild liner I use to highlight something that's like, yes, like big quote or big moment or anything like that. These for things that are like big but not huge, and these ones either to write or to underline small things that I think are relevant in my books. And the final 2 things in my pouch are just a mechanical pencil and a pen. This one is a Stabilo point ball 0.05. I had this one laying around and it really works well to write in my books. It's not too thick, it's not too thin. I really like this one. Like I said, I do use those other Stabilo ones to write as well, but sometimes I just want to write in a ballpoint pen, and I use these 2 things to write in my books as well. So that is what I use to highlight, and I am going to show you a little bit of some books that I've highlighted, and then I'm going to go with the colors, what they mean. And sometimes, keep in mind, I do switch it up, but generally speaking, I keep them for the same thing, but I do switch it up sometimes. One of my most heavily annotated book, and if you know me, one of my favorite books of all time, if not my favorite book of all time, it's hard to say, but probably, is The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. And like this, you'd say, it doesn't look too bad, but this is the beast. And then I have some tabs on top as well. Like, I've read this one 4 times, and every time I read it, I stick in new tabs. Like what I was trying to tell you earlier, I used to use these tabs that were super wide, And as you can tell, these ones take up a lot more space, which is probably also why it looks more heavily annotated than others. But yeah, this one I used all these super wide tabs, which is why it looks so crazy as well. But there are quite a few tabs in it. I mean, it's quite insane. With this one, all I did is I just stuck in the tabs. As you can tell, I didn't really do anything else. I didn't highlight, I didn't write in it. I just read and stuck in the tabs. And the top tabs are for moments that are really, really important. Like, for example, if I have a blue usually means emotional. Like, it can be any sort of emotion. It can make me angry, it can make me sad, it can make me feel anything. And if I feel something, I put a blue tab in. And when they're at the top, it's because I felt a lot. Whereas too, when they're here, it's like I felt something, but here it's like, oh my god, you know. So that's kind of how I annotate. On the side, it's just like regular things, and then things that are really, I know, like if we're gonna have a live show, I'm gonna want to reference these ones specifically, because here it's really easy to not find anything anymore. But these ones are quite easy. And for example, I'm pretty sure this first green tab that's at the top, because green in my annotating system of this one means world building. I'm pretty sure this first green tab up here is when he explains what allomancy is and how it works. And I'm pretty sure another green tab at the top is going to be when he explains all the metals and how Vin can use them. So that is my first book, one of my most heavily annotated ones. I love this one so much, and I never wrote in it, also because I never wanted to break the spine of this one. So that's one of the main reasons. But eventually maybe I will go through this and write in it. Maybe I'll get another copy of this when I like less and just write the heck in that one and just go crazy. Another book I've heavily annotated, maybe less. I've also read it less. I've only read this one twice, I think, compared to that one, which I've read like I think 4 times, is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. The first time I annotated this one, I used only one color, and then I went in and added other colors in my second read. And this one is a mess because this one has a mixture of different tabs. This one has these really, really, really thin tabs that I used to have that I wanted to use up. Then it has these tabs that I had lying around that are like more like, you know, like sign here kind of tab. Then they have the normal ones that I just showed you that I use, that are these ones. And I don't think oh, yep. There's these ones that are arrows, but still different from the ones I showed you. I think in this book, I was just trying to use up any and all tabs that I had lying around. So it's a mess, this one. It has so many different sizes of tabs, types of tabs. But this one is not only a book that I've really heavily tabbed. I don't even think I wrote in this book, to be honest. It's just heavily tabbed. But this book, I loved it so much. And I actually did some art on it. So this is the back of my book. This one was inspired by, what's the channel name? I Live for Books or something like that. I will leave her channel down below, but I was inspired by her to do this. I did stuff on the inside of my book. Like this one I was really inspired to be creative with for some reason. Like I love this book back when it came out. I still love this book, to be honest. I love Akamath. So yeah, I always wanted to do something here, but I've never taken the time to do the art on this one yet. Yeah, this one is another one that I've heavily annotated, heavily loved, and just really enjoy going through it again and seeing what I've highlighted. But the thing is, you don't know what I mean because I didn't write in it. Now, to show you how it can look like when... So I never finished my reread of A Game of Thrones. I started a reread to annotate it, and then it was taking forever because I'm going to show you why. In this one, I've always used sticky tabs, which, post-it notes, which I didn't really use in other ones. But this one is my most heavily annotated book, I think. Like, not necessarily annotated, but written. Like this one, we have a small highlights here, and then we have writing in here. But let me find a page to showcase this. Okay, look at this. Like, here we have all the highlights. We have highlights here. We have sticky notes here with my thoughts on it. We have stuff on the sides. We have, like, the next page looks like this. This book is like... I love this book, and I can't wait to actually finish this reread, which means starting it from the beginning and rereading it. Like, look at this. We have fully highlighted text, then we have just like underlined. It's just a mess. And then let's see to find, yep, this must be, oh, I wrote The Best Boy, so this was Ghost. Like, look at that. And it's just, I loved annotating this, guys. Here, another page of... Like, this is a Danny chapter, so I have highlighted, like, I've surrounded the word 3 a lot. And I'm pretty sure I wrote something at the end about the 3, why I was highlighting these. Like, my Daenerys chapters are just heavily heavily highlighted. I was trying to look for the House of the Undying one, like it doesn't even need to be the House of the Undying. This is how crazy it can get for me. Like I don't really know if you can see. I think you can. There you go. And yeah, this book I am going ham on. This one I just love so much, and I can't wait to restart this one and to continue doing this to all of my books, which is why I own so many editions of this series, because I have my beautiful pretty ones and then I have the ones that are to annotate. This one is technically a pretty one, but it's a bit damaged because I found it used for €4, so I decided to annotate this one, and I wanted to make this specific copy special to me. So I think that next year, I've been talking to Joana and Jimmy about rereading the series and annotating it, so I think I'm gonna do it and just, you know, create a lot of A Song of Ice and Fire content, because you guys don't know that I love this series from a poll that I did on my Instagram this weekend, and I want to do more A Song of Ice and Fire content because of how much I love it. And to show you something a bit more recent that I started tabbing, I started annotating Jade War, and I'm kind of doing the A Song of Ice and Fire tabbing system in here, where I'm writing a lot in it. I am highlighting, I'm trying to find, yeah, here we have a page where I have a lot of annotations, a lot of things that I am writing in. So this is a more recent one. I probably need to restart this because I started this in December and I just didn't continue on, so I don't know yet. But this one I'm also heavily tapping and using the writing in, really engaging with the text because of how much I love the series. But this is also why I then don't feel so compelled to pick it up, because annotating like this, the way I'm annotating this, highlighting, writing, tabbing, referencing, it takes a lot of time. Now let's talk about the colors. Generally speaking, I have the same stuff for everything, except for example, here for the Jade Legacy series, I'm using a different system. So the gray, like I said, is random things, like things I want to highlight, things maybe that I think are interesting in passing, but don't really fit in any of the other categories. I highlight in gray just because. And then if I feel like maybe I want to tab it, I would use like a color of something that I don't really use for anything else, or just like the closest it can get to something. But usually I don't tab the gray stuff just because it's a bit random, but I highlight it. Then pink always means love. This can mean quotes that I love, a sentence that I think is just beautifully written. It can mean love between characters, like if there's a romance in it, or if there is a familial bond or friendship bond. Like as soon as there's love somewhere, I put it in pink, which can be a bit confusing. And I was thinking about changing this up and maybe picking something different for quotes. I was thinking about keeping pink for love, as in like quotes and writing and all that stuff, but I don't really look for that when I read. I'm not a prose person. I'm becoming a prose person. I figured out a bit more. I like pretty prose, but I'm not like a prose person, so I don't really go for that, which is why for now it's like a kind of like a tab all for things that I love in a book. Then we have orange, which is characters. This is character introductions. This is character development. This is things that have specifically to like things that happen in a character's life that's going to change something for them, or something that really defines a character, so that's gonna go with orange. Then we have yellow, and usually I used to use it for like funny, but then I realized that's why I have so many yellow tabs left over, because not every book has humor, and I don't highlight everything or tab everything that I think is funny. Sometimes it's just like makes me chuckle, which now I've used the gray for, or just like with my pen I underline it if I think it's funny, it makes me chuckle, I'm like lol or something like that. So now for this one I used, because this is a family drama story, I used yellow for family and for relationships, so a bit different from characters, but yeah, to tap all those things like the family politics, the family drama, the family dynamics, and or other relationships like friendships or stuff like that, I use yellow for. Then we have green, which I usually use for world building, and here I did as well, but with a little caveat that I'm using it also specifically for anything that has to do with a magic system. So it can be world and or magic system, or stuff that has to do with Jade, I use green for. In all my other books I use it for world building, history of the world, magic systems, etc. Then I have blue, which I already said is emotional. This can be things that make me angry, things that make me sad, things that make me feel something, or that is emotional for the character. When a character is going through something that's really emotional to them, that's really defining, like something that's really changing for them or something like that, or when they go into their backstory and they'd say, hey, when I was a kid this and this happened to me, and it's super emotional, I will tab it blue as opposed to orange, because it's something that's not just like a description of a character or something like that, but it's something like from their past that really affects them and is really at the core of who they are, and of their emotions. Then I have the two purples. And then this switches. Sometimes I do the one, sometimes the other. One of the purples, the dark one in this case, is for politics. Sometimes I use it for like action points, but because I love political intrigue so much, I tend to pick up books that are politically heavy. And so I decided to use a tab for politics. This can be in-world politics, this can be family politics. If I don't have a book like this where I have a tab for family, I wouldn't use the purple. But if I have a book where I don't use a specific tab for family because it's not a big thing, then I will just do all the politics under purple. And then the other purple, the light purple, is plot points or foreshadowing, which that's the same for every book. Things, huge plot twists, huge things that will change something in the plot of the story of the book, or foreshadowing, or things that I think are foreshadowing, which is really fun on rereads to see, was I right, was I not right, and then I can actually tab the actual foreshadowing. So that is kind of the colors that I use and what I use them for. So some tips and tricks on how you can annotate, and things that if you don't want to go ham in your books and write and highlight and do what I do to my books, something you can do to start with sticky notes with post-it notes. You can write your thoughts on a post-it note, stick it in your book, and then if you don't feel comfortable, or if you want to give away the book, for example, if I want to give away my copy of Game of Thrones, which I never will, but if I wanted to, well, I mean, it would be interesting for someone because I'm highlighting a lot of stuff that's like, I follow podcasts as I read chapter by chapter breakdowns of things that are like super foreshadowing, super things like, it's that series. I need to make a video on my love for A Song of Ice and Fire because, yeah. But people may be like, oh, I didn't know this. This is cool that you pointed this out. Or I think this is also something really cool to do with, for example, The Way of Kings, where there's a huge universe or a huge world with a lot of intricacies. I mean, I wouldn't feel so bad giving that to someone, but then I would be spoiling them for a lot of things. So I don't know if I would give it away. So if you did want to give away a book that you annotated, then you can just take off the post-it notes that you wrote in and the sticky tabs, take everything out and donate the book. And no one will ever know that you wrote in your book, that you tabbed it and annotated it. That's something you can do. You can use just a pencil, which you see I have a pencil in my thing, which is like if I have an annotation that I'm like, I'm not sure I want to leave this in, I'll write it with a pencil and then I can go back and erase it if need be. I used pencils a lot in the beginning when I wasn't sure about annotating my own personal collection, but then I switched over to pens and colors and all that really fast because I love doing this. But if you're not sure, if you just want to try it out, you can use, for example, an old copy of a book or buy a secondhand copy of a book if you can find one, something for cheap, and then annotate it with a pencil and see how it makes you feel. Use post-it notes, use tabs that you just stick in, and then if you see that you really like it, then you can continue annotating because it's clearly for you. So those are the things that I wanted to say, but I do have the tag questions here and I will see if I forgot to mention some. So question 1 was, do you mark your annotations with page flags, which you saw? Yes. Do you match flags to the book cover or do you have a flagging system? I have a system. What is the first book you ever annotated? That I don't know because it was for school. I think the first book I ever annotated was either Akamath or The Final Empire. I'm thinking Akamath though. Well, probably Akatar in that case because it was the first book in that series. But I don't remember which one of the two, like if it was Akatar or The Final Empire, but it was one of those. Have you ever been against annotating books? Like I said, I loved always doing it in my school books, but I always felt really weird in my own personal collection. And like if we had read Akatar at school, I would have written in it without a problem. But because it was my own personal collection, I didn't feel like it. But I was never like, how dare you write in your books? Never like that. Did you ease into annotating or did you jump right in? Like I told you, I eased into it, especially with my own personal collection. Do you keep an unannotated version of your annotated books? Sometimes, like I said, for the Song of Ice and Fire books, I have multiple editions of that series. So yes, I have unannotated editions of that book. I have unannotated editions of actually, yeah, I think that's the only one. Other than that, I just have the book and I annotate it. Of course, if it's a special edition, I wouldn't annotate it. Like if it's an expensive special edition, like the Foley Society of Game of Thrones, I would never annotate those. And sometimes, yes, I have other editions, but most of the time, no, I don't have 2 editions of the same book. Has anyone ever annotated a book for you? Yes, I had my best friend read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones and the Six, and I knew she would really like them, and I said, hey, if you want, just take a pencil or pen or whatever and write your thoughts as you read. And then when I haven't reread The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo since then, but I have reread Daisy Jones since then, and it was really fun to see her annotation and like how she was mocking the characters or reacting to the characters. So yes, I have had people do that for me. Do you mind used books with annotations already in them? I never thought of this. I think if someone gave me their book, I wouldn't mind, but I prefer having a book for me to annotate because I feel like annotation is so personal and so, yeah, just to you that I wouldn't want, I wouldn't want anyone else's annotations in my books. Unless it's, like I said, a friend and I want them to annotate my book, then yes. But like a random stranger, I don't know. Have you ever gotten hate or horrified stares for writing in your books? Not yet. Maybe with this video. What do you annotate your books with? I already showed you that. Have you ever regretted annotating a book? No. Why do you annotate? Already said that. When underlining, do you use a ruler? Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I'm not really fussed. Do you annotate each book that you read? Ah, yes, that's the last question that I didn't reply. No, I don't. Sometimes I love immersion reading, like I said, and there's no rhyme or reason as to why I annotate a book. There's some books that I feel like I want to annotate, and it's no particular reason. Like if it's a series, I'm more likely to annotate. There's books that I've started annotating and gave up halfway through. The Nevernight series, for example, I did that. I was like, I want to annotate this, and then I ended up immersion reading, and because of the pacing of the immersion reading, I ended up not annotating it. I didn't annotate Jade City, but I'm annotating Jade War. Yeah, it's really, there's no rhyme or reason. If I pick up a book and I'm thinking, oh, there's probably going to be quotes in here that I'm going to really like, then I'm going to annotate it. And then sometimes I'm in the middle of the book, I'm like, I want to annotate this, and then I do. So no, I don't, but there's no rhyme or reason as to why I annotate a book, versus not annotating it. So that was a long video about annotating my books. I hope you enjoyed this video and that it gave you a little bit of an insight as to why or where or how I annotate. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments down below, and let me know if you annotate your books, and if so, why, and if not, why not? Why do you not want to annotate? I'm always intrigued to see people who love annotating and those who are like, oh, I would never write in a book. So I'm always like to see what people think. If you just want to let me know you were here, leave a dragon emoji, and until next time, happy reading. Bye guys.